What's up guys, my name is Luke from Archerwood Style Consultancy and pre-owned menswear store. It's Monday, it's mailbag time. With these videos, I do this weekly where I answer your style questions. So you can leave one either via a comment or DM me at Archerwoods on Instagram. The best way though is to leave a comment on this video. Before we get into it, please remember to like and subscribe because it really helps me grow the store and the channel. And if you're interested in pre-owned menswear, check out our store archerwoods.com. I also offer a style consultancy service, so like anything from like an hour one-on-one session to a full wardrobe overhaul personal shopping service. Right, let's get into it. We've got a few good ones. So the first question I was sent via DM, but without any sort of explanation. So I'm assuming to just comment on it. And it actually is really interesting. So some of your Twitter or X probably heard of a gentleman who writes about menswear called Derek Guy. So he's at Dye Workwear, and shout out to Derek. He's a really knowledgeable source of like classic menswear. He does really interesting in-depth threads on like the ins and outs of like outfits and lapels and all that stuff we nerd about. From my opinion, he has a very sort of like classic view on things. And the one that was sent over to me was this comment, well, this thread on Daniel Craig's suit. So I've made videos on Daniel Craig's style in general. There are areas that I definitely think he can improve, but there's also some really good stuff as well. He carries himself impeccably. His transformation into Bond, into being, I think, the best Bond. Is my favourite Bond by far. But yeah, I'm a big fan. And so this thread, I just put it up here. Someone tweeted, said, "Men, what's stopping you dressing like this?" And it's Daniel Craig in his Tom Ford suit. I think it was for No Time to Die. I'm not sure which film. And he's commented, so there's a strong belief that the trousers should be higher and the tie should end near the belt line. And yeah, I agree with that. I think if you followed me for any time, I love a high-rise trouser, and the tie length I think is the thing. There was actually a photo of him at Wimbledon where his tie was really short, and I think, yeah, just adding a little bit longer so it approaches your waistline is definitely preferable. But I guess if you have a higher waistline, that would work as well. That would fix all of the issues. But yeah, I definitely think you could do with a longer tie. But that's, we're nitpicking. We're getting into like the weeds of like nerding out on menswear. So later on, he put a little comparison about like if his suits fit in properly, put it side by side, and sort of showed the difference. And it is quite interesting. A lot of people have stated he wears his suits too small, and yeah, for sure, they are on the tight side. But my point of view is I don't mind it in a sort of traditional classic way. Yes, they're on the tight side. Like if you're getting a bespoke suit, you would rather it look like, so with the comparative photo, the one on the right and the left. But we all have our different like preferences. Like for the films, he wanted to show off basically how jacked he was for the most of it. And clearly that's something he's taken into the real world, because with his suits, he wears them in the same sort of way, very form-hugging and tight to his body. But I still think that's okay, because it just is a sort of like point of preference. Like we don't all have to follow the same sort of mold just because it's a suit. Like, oversized suits are a thing, boxer suits, there's lots of different ways to do it. And I think this is a perfectly valid one as well, because like lots of guys who are into suits and tailoring and are relatively jacked, they might want to show it off a little bit more. And I think that's absolutely okay. And I also think that's the case with like, when you get like a really tall, slim, sort of model looking person, I think it's like wear a slimmer suit, like a Saint Laurent suit. It's different and it shows variety and expression. So I'm totally okay with like someone like Daniel wearing a slimmer suit to fit his form, because that's what he prefers. Absolutely cool with it. Now there is ways to do it. That's the other thing. So I think he's doing it in the right way. So he's wearing very, very nice suits. Yes, I'd like to see the rise of the trousers higher, but it could be a complete personal preference kind of thing. But they're beautiful suits. He's turned like most of his choices are really well done. I did a video on his footwear, which I'm not a big fan of, but that's another thing altogether. But I think he does it really well. I think the jacket length is good, so that's a really important point. He just wears them sort of more figure hugging, so it shows off his muscles. The classic way, and what Derek was talking about in terms of suits fitting, if you look at someone like Bill Nighy, who wears his suits absolutely impeccably, he's someone who would be the like ideal fit with the suit. He just looks great. But he's also a much more slender guy. He's got a different aesthetic about him. He's got a more older, gentlemanly, just classic way about him. So it's just different horses for different courses, just different tastes. So I don't think there should be a negative with it, but I understand why people are calling it out if we're just looking for learning points. And like if you're thinking like, oh, I just want a suit to fit right, go for more the Bill Nighy look. Listen to Derek's advice in terms of like pulling and things like that. For me personally, I like both. I like the more, depends what mood I'm in, depends where I'm going. I don't mind something a little bit more form hugging. It doesn't bother me at all. But also there are times where I prefer something a little bit more classic. So I like having more than one sort of aesthetic in my wardrobe in the way I dress. Derek also brought up the earlier suits from Brioni in Casino Royale and the earlier Daniel Craig Bond films. And for me, especially the one in Casino Royale, it's of its time. So it's like early 2000, I think. It's too boxy for me, but it is the time period I remember very well. The shoulders are too broad for me. The sleeves are too wide. So that's on the other end of the spectrum. I prefer him with a slimmer, more form-hugging physique. I think there is a middle ground. I do think he does go too far, especially in the Spectre film. But I prefer him to wear the more active, sort of like muscular roles. Especially think how Bond was. He was like more action-packed, more aggressive. And I think that suit really showed off in the way that was portrayed. And also just thinking back, like, this is an idea of the way a suit should fit as well. Like, I fluctuate in weight quite a bit. Even when I'm not trimming down my chest hair, I can gain like half an inch on my chest. So that sort of pulling and tugging, and especially if you do weights as well, can happen. It's just it is a natural part of it. Like, in my point of view, we can have this idea of a perfect fit all the time. If you're towing the line of a slim blazer, like obviously if you're wearing more roomier boxer fit, it's easier. If you're on that slim cut barrier, then sometimes things are going to pull. You're going to gain weight sometimes, or you gain muscle, and vice versa. So this idea that, I don't want people to think like, this is pulling, so it's no good. Like, things change. Like, even if you look at sort of like classic, I always look to the Italians, and they do tailoring the best. Look at some Pitti photos, and you'll still see some very well dressed men within the menswear realm with some pull on their jacket and some slight things that are technically not right. But it's a thing you shouldn't be put off by it too much. But it's important that you get in your head what you like and what you value within menswear. And that's why I love people like Derek as well. Like, I don't agree with everything that he says. I agree with it from a technical and classic point of view, but there's style to be included in it as well. It's like when you go to a wine bar and they pour it out for you in like one of those metal measuring cups. So you're going to get the exact measurements, like just free pour. Or like in football or soccer, to a lot of you, like if everyone was technically gifted and it should be a very boring game. You want a street footballer, you want a bit of flair in there just to mix things up. And I think that's the same with menswear as well. Right, so next question, which is another one I've lost. I can't find anything on my computer at the moment. So I'll try and find it and put it up on the screen. But essentially he was asking about t-shirts and wearing them with blazers and suits. So I did a video on Brad Pitt when he was at Silverstone, I think. And he was wearing this suede bomber, and he was wearing this really light fabric t-shirt, which I think in the video it was quite long as well. So I think I was saying, look, what I would do to just smarten up a little bit was make it a little bit shorter, or have a shorter t-shirt, and maybe from a material that was a little bit more structured and rigid, just a little bit more, just so it didn't crease a lot and didn't sort of look scruffy, sort of like pull around quite a lot. So in the question I asked, like, how do you wear t-shirts with blazers, because sometimes it can look just a bit weird. So, and I definitely agree that some t-shirts just don't go with blazers. I had that problem for a long time until I found like the right brand, which my favorite brand is Sunspell. Absolutely fantastic t-shirts, made well. They are on the pricey side, but you can pick them up pre-owned for around about like £20-30. So they do last well. They're nice t-shirts. So the things I look out for when getting a t-shirt, if you're going to wear it under a blazer or with a suit, is first of all the neckline is really important. So some of the like more sporty t-shirts have like this really high elasticated neckline, and that's something I want to steer clear of as much as possible. I like a really thin sort of rim around your neck, so it doesn't sort of stick up. So it just sits nicely. So you want to try this out. It's going to be trial and error with your body type and everything else, and just your personal preference. So something that just sits just around your collarbone is ideal in my opinion. Then it's material. So like I said with Brad Pitt's one, it was a bit loose, and I prefer something a little bit more structure, but only a little bit more. So you can also go too rigid and thick. So the cotton can be sometimes like it could be a really well made t-shirt, but it's a really thick cotton. And I find for my body type, because I've got a little bit, carrying a little bit of weight on the chest, but also if you've got a little bit of muscle on the chest as well, it could just not form hug to your body as much. It could just hang over the top. So I try to go for something on the mid to thinner sort of weight. And again, it's trial and error with this. Again, I would recommend Sunspell for these, or something like a John Smedley. Another option is knitted t-shirts, because they tend to be more form hugging as well. Brands for a more affordable side of things of this is like John Henrik. You can get them from Reese as well. Sunspell do them, I believe, and John Smedley also. There is a downside though when you go for these like lighter fabrics. Sometimes they don't wash well. You can get little holes in them quite often. So it is important that you go for a brand that make them as best as possible, really. I remember when I used to buy All Saints back in the day, there was holes in them constantly. That was a real big problem. But yeah, for Sunspell, I tend to have a really good experience with. And then it is just fit overall. So you don't want when the sleeves sort of come out like that. You want it to be a bit more form hugging to your arm. And also just to your body as well. But again, this is trial and error. So once you find a brand, it's probably best to just stick with it once you find something that feels good for you. If you are still having problems with it, then you also have to consider as well what you're pairing with it. So first of all, what blazer you're wearing. Is it that the blazer's too short? Sometimes it can just look a bit weird. It's the lapels and the collar right. So it's the look overall. Sometimes you can think it's the t-shirt or the one issue, and it can be the rest of the fit. The trousers as well, if you're wearing like a suit, are you tucking your t-shirt in? Is the size right of the t-shirt? And then is the color palette right as well? So all these things can play a part in you maybe feeling like something's off. So it's just nailing down these aspects. If you have any recommendations for brands, please drop in the comments as well. I'm always looking around for new brands that do these kind of like well-made, tasteful t-shirts. So yeah, drop them in the comments. And lastly was a comment on Instagram, and I do have it this time. It was, could you go over Josh Hartnett's Oppenheimer premiere suit? So this is one I actually missed out from the original video I did on Oppenheimer and the premiere, but I saw it just before I saw this comment on William Gilchrist's Instagram account. So William Gilchrist is a stylist, a celebrity stylist. He does like Jude Law, obviously Josh Hartnett as well, and loads of people. He's done like little videos from GQ and Mr. Porter. You can find him online for that. He's a really interesting guy. So he's actually the guy who I took a portrait of when I was shooting Street Style and finally got the photo in GQ, because that was one of my goals when I started off with photography, was to get like one of the photos in GQ print. And I'll put it up actually. Yeah, so he's a really cool guy. He's got a great look about him, this sort of loose sort of tailoring look about him. And yeah, he styled Josh Hartnett for this. You can see his Instagram post here. So he's wearing a Gucci suit and a watch by Bulgari. So this is a beautiful suit. I love the colours here. Oh, just a nice little blend of this sort of like bluey grey suit and this sort of more powdery blue shirt. Love the structure of the suit. I like what Gucci are doing now. So they're sort of toning down what they were doing with the previous era, with the Michele era, and they're making it more wearable and more palatable for just like the everyman. So I would happily wear this fit. Simple as well, just a suit and a shirt, pleated high-waisted trousers. I just love the structure of the shoulders, the nice lapels, and they're a nice, interesting shape as well, and a good size of collar. Personally, I don't mind the extra button being open on the shirt. That's just my thing. I know a lot of people do have an issue with it, but I think it looks great. It would be nice to pop that collar in though, but that's not his fault. Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful suit. And yeah, if you are interested, have a search on William Gilchrist as well. He's a really interesting guy. But anyway, guys, that's my mailbag for the week. Thank you for watching. Please do check out archandwoods.com for pre-owned menswear. And if you're interested in style consultancy at all, do remember to like and subscribe, because it really helps me grow the store, the channel, everything. And also leave a comment if you have any questions that you want me to answer for future videos. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Cheers.